Perfect. We are live. Hello, everybody. I am Sam Olsen from Crossroads, a online discussion video podcast of sorts. It's a little video series I do with Origami Studios that runs MAVERiC Studios up on the 4th floor of the Entrepreneurship Center here at UCSD's Office of Innovation Building. We wanted to thank the basement for letting us have this space where we can talk to Matt and Marty Forbeck of Shotguns and Sorcery. We have the book right here. And yeah, we'll dive right in if you guys want to introduce yourselves and yeah, what brings you
This is the nicest basement I've ever been in. I just want to say, when I grew up playing D&D in the basement, I never dreamed of being one this cool.
Yeah. Most basements, they put them underground, but this one is nice enough.
Right there. You walk in, sunshine coming in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Let's see. I'm Matt Forbeck. I'm a full-time designer and writer. I do game design and video games and novels and comic books and all sorts of other things. Anything that has a story attached to it.
Right.
I like to write. I've been doing it professionally for about 35 years. And you are?
I'm Marty Forbeck. It's nice to meet you. I'm his son. And I've been doing the same sort of stuff, picking up on your coattails for like 3-4 years now. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, we wrote this together. We've been doing the Marvel RPG together, and we just had the Warcraft book came out like a week ago.
That's true.
Yeah.
World of Warcraft Chronicles 4.
Yeah.
From Dark Horse Comics. Go buy it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, done a ton of world building and books and everything. But how did you get started in this industry? What did you do playing games when you were a kid, and then that just kind of developed a passion for writing?
I start? If somebody,
that's like the joke is we always get the kids.
I was just learning to waggle a rattle, and you're like, "Here, kid, here's a Dreamcast controller."
Yeah, you just kind of
take this
some
instead.
die, and
You're 1.5 years old. You're ready for Shenmue.
Well, I started out not like him. I started out actually because it was before a lot of the stuff happened, right? Because I'm an old man. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was like 12 years old, and I grew up in southern Wisconsin, which is where we live nowadays, actually. Yeah. And that was where the birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons was. It started in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, back in 1974, and this is actually the 50th anniversary of it. So it's 50 years of D&D now this summer. Actually, in January, I guess is when they said it was. But I started playing some friends of mine across the street when we were 12 years old, and we started going to conventions and playing lots of live play games with people. We didn't have cameras like this back then. It was mostly just we had to look at each other and stuff, right? And I started going to conventions. I had my first booth at a Gen Con when I was 16, 17 years old, and I was selling like a little zine. My dad had said either get a job or start a business, so I started that as a business.
Nice.
And I kind of fell into doing it professionally after that. And when I was in college, I started freelance editing and developing for different companies. So I worked for Gary Gygax's New Infinities. He was one of the creators of Dungeons and Dragons, and he started a new company after TSR. And so I started editing novels and game products for him, and then kept doing it. I kept freelancing, and had a great time doing it for many, many years.
Yeah, long time. As long as I've known you.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
Since well before. Marty, when he was an infant, literally, he gets born in 1998. That winter, we had moved back to Wisconsin right after he was born. I literally was writing a role-playing game called Brave New World, which is this dystopian supers game, with him on my lap as I reached across the keyboard. So he's been involved in these things.
A superhero game. And now
remember that.
Another superhero
months
game.
old.
Yeah,
months old.
Definitely remember that. And you went to University of Wisconsin?
Madison.
Or Madison, got it.
Yeah.
And what was your degree in for that?
I got a double major in creative writing and radio, TV, film was like communication arts, essentially.
Okay. And that was something that you kind of saw maybe potentially following?
Yeah, I get a little training and then...
This was the plan?
Yeah, well, no.
You basically got degrees that made you useless for anything else.
Yeah,
and you had to go. That's what happens.
Right.
I have a creative writing degree too, so I sympathize.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a plan. I went to college to have fun, and then afterward, I was like, well, now I need to find a way to make some money.
And that looks like fun, right?
Yeah.
So, or this one.
Yeah,
fun.
exactly. Yeah. Well, speaking of shotguns and sorcery, that's kind of what is bringing you to Comic-Con, kind of, showcasing
Yeah.
it. And how long has this been in the works? And
Well, this is the latest version of it. It actually
Yeah.
started out 20 years ago when I actually came up with this whole idea for the setting. And it was in 2001, and I licensed it to a company named Mongoose, who was doing third edition Dungeons & Dragons products in those days.
Mhm.
And then I had to shelve it for a while because that happened in Gen Con, so August 2001. And in December 2001, we discovered my wife was pregnant with quadruplets, and that kind of threw everything off for us, right? So
Right.
I had to shelve that for a while. And then those quadruplets are around 22 years old, and some of them were graduating from college. But a guy named Robin Laws asked me to write a short story for him, so I set it in this the setting, and that came out like in 2012, I think. And then we did a Cypher System edition, which used the game from the game system from Monty Cook Games that they used from Numenera and Strange and all their other stuff. And then we decided to do a 5th edition version, and Marty was just graduating college at that point. I'm like, why don't we do this? We'll have you do the rule system. We'll run a Kickstarter for it. And then we fulfilled it. And we actually had to come out last year, and then we were too busy to actually release it to the public until like a month ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mostly we've been working on the Marvel role-playing game for like the last 2-3 years, pretty solid.
Mhm.
And that's taken up a lot of our bandwidth. But and then the World of Warcraft book you did,
Yeah.
all the other stuff. So,
Yeah. And you did the rule specifically for
Yeah,
for
I did
this.
the rules development. We also had Rob Schwab come in and help out. He's a 5th edition genius. Helped edit up my junior
Well,
D&D.
you did a fine job, but you can't beat Rob on that stuff.
No,
He was
you
actually
can't.
one of
He's
the
a
developers
genius.
of 5th edition. so-
Yeah. You get some first dibs on that too as well. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing. How was the process of joining in on Shotguns and Sorcery? Was this your first project, or you'd been working with?
It's the first project I did professionally.
Was
it? I think so.
I don't remember anymore.
Uh,
It all blurs
There might
together.
have been some like adventure thing or
Yeah.
something. like
Yeah.
Oh
that.
yeah, it was that adventure we did for the Rand thing? Was that before that or after that?
I can't remember.
Okay, it was probably
I think
it was this.
It
Let's
was
go with
right
this.
around-
Yeah, so never mind.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
amazing.
canon now says it was this.
Yeah.
And Gen Con again is just so we have it out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gen Con is the largest tabletop role-playing game or tabletop convention in the world, possibly with the exception of Spiele in Germany, which does mostly European-style board games.
Mhm.
But for role-playing games and collectible card games and everything else, Gen Con brings in about 80,000 people to Indianapolis every August, usually late July, early August, which is great because my birthday is August 4th, so it usually happens right on my birthday.
Nice.
Great
Good
time.
celebration.
Get to celebrate at Gen Con. And they've been going for, I think, 55 years now.
Yeah.
And because Gen Con actually started, Gary Gygax founded Gen Con in Lake Geneva,
Yeah.
and then came out with Dungeons and Dragons a few years after that. So it's always been a portion of that. But I mean, Gary was actually a guy who brought together gamers to play games together, and he was developing all sorts of games. Dungeons and Dragons was finally the one that just took off like a rocket.
Yeah.
And it's been such an influential and important game for not just games, but for everybody, I think, for many years.
Yeah, definitely. There's been, new research saying like Dungeons and Dragons as a tabletop role-playing game is, improving mental health. Like, can
Yeah.
you speak to that, or how you kind of seen, as well as like it's been, increasing in popularity recently.
Sure.
So how that?
Now, I absolutely believe that. But the
Yeah.
funny part is that when I was growing up, they had this thing called the Satanic Panic in the
Right.
80s where it was on 60 Minutes. There was this woman, Pat Pulling, who was doing this thing called Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons because her son had committed suicide and they found D&D books in her room and she needed something to hang that on. It was a terrible, horrible story, right?
Right.
But her and the guy...
Speaks to a lack of self-awareness.
Yeah,
Naming your
well-
own organization bad
Yeah,
with
I
two
know.
Ds.
And she worked with a guy named Thomas Radecki, who was the head of the National Coalition on Television Violence, that was basically telling us Bugs Bunny was turning us all into murderers because, of all the violence in children's television at the time.
Right.
So I didn't agree with any of that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I actually always thought that D&D was a great place for people to learn how to interact with other people, to have rules around you, especially when you're a young person, to help you build those tools you need to interact with other people. And it's great for mental health that way, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
to see research actually supporting that, as opposed to people screaming about it and burning books and things like that, it's wonderful.
Yeah, kind of seeing this flip. Almost, yeah. I think,
And it's this natural thing that's happened over the years. I mean, nowadays people go, yeah, duh. I mean, it's been here for 30 years or for 50 years.
yeah.
We've got 2 or 3 generations of people have played it, if not more. And so nobody questions that anymore. It's
Exactly.
not this thing like nobody says, "Oh my God, you're doing this satanic stuff. We need to
Right.
protect you and get you away from it." It's just part of the
more
culture.
a role playing, and that's like from the beginning of generation of D&D. How was your upbringing with that? Because you were around it a lot, but have you also seen a switch even from?
I don't know about a switch. I mean, I didn't grow up during the Satanic Panic. By the time I was, old enough to actually start playing D&D, all that stuff was over. We were in the middle of 4th edition D&D.
Yeah,
and it was, which was kind of a downslope for D&D. It's only really after 5th edition took off that it's like it's had this big resurgence in popularity. I mean, Balers Gate was the biggest game last year. That's straight up just 5th edition.
Yeah, and even making 5th edition writers change a few things.
Yeah,
because of Baldur's
exactly.
Gate, right?
Yeah.
Which is Balder's Gate again is a video game that kind of popularized or embodied.
It's a licensed game based on
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons and actually uses the mechanics from it, and they do a wonderful job of it. Won like every award last year. Baldur's Gate 3. So if you're not into role playing games yet, or you don't have friends who want to teach you that game, go try that out. It's really a wonderful game. It's a fantastic experience.
Yeah, because I have a lot of friends, or I talk to people that are trying to get into Dungeons and Dragons, and you can look for forums or find groups to play with that way. But it's also exciting to have an entrance or entry point on your own with Baldur's Gate. And speaking of, we're in the Office of Innovation and Commercialization. D&D is always innovating and changing, and essentially with Baldur's Gate. Yesterday we played a little one-off of Shotguns and Sorcery to kind of get in the world of Dragon City, see what it's like and how exactly a game could be played there. But there were also VR and AI elements implemented in that. How was coming about implementing those or wanting to?
That was really up to Joe Unger and Trisha Williams, who are the people behind MAVERiC, and they do a great job with it. And they're longtime friends of mine. I've known Joe for like 20, 30 years, something like that now. And Trisha's amazing as well. And man, they threw together that VR experience and like nothing flat. They're total experts in the stuff. That stuff would have taken me like a year just to even learn what the heck I was doing. They were like, boom, hey, what do you think? I'm like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But they did the VR stuff. They had the drones flying around. They had the holograms going. They had mocktail drinks that they brought in that were based in the city, that they had non-alcoholic cocktails. Really amazing stuff. Just a wonderful multimedia experience in just about every sense of it. Yeah. It was really surreal because I look up, I'm like, there's my face in this 20-foot screen. What am I doing here?
Exactly.
So, you don't start out doing role-playing games to get famous. Right? It used to be a big joke. You'd say, world famous game designer. But now there are, not that I am, but there are guys like, Warren Spector and all these guys, tremendous people who have done tons and tons of stuff. The guys, Mike Merle's behind 5th edition, Chris Perkins, and I'm going to blank on another name. The guys who are working on the new edition of the game too. Jeremy Crawford, that's it. There's a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons coming out this summer, which is going to be backwards compatible with 5th edition. So it's really just like 5.25 or something.
Kind of an update. Get people playing differently.
It's been so huge for them. There's no reason to switch over to something fairly new, like they have in the past.
So like you could see those VR and AI tech being more implemented for, better immersion during games or.
I think the neat thing that they did yesterday was it was like just a highlight for the game as opposed to an integrated part that you had to be messing around with the entire time. It's like, hey, we're going to get to this cool point. We're going to show you this cool thing, and then we'll put it away, right? So it was more of an adjunct to it, but it was still a vital and integral part of the game without overwhelming it, right? Not everybody had to wear a headset. We just had one guy doing it. We showed it on the screen above. And then after the game was over, everybody could go on and try it, right? Individually on their own time. And I think they had like 30, 40, 50 people that ran through it. It was amazing.
Right.
I did it myself. It was really cool.
Exactly. Not your first time in VR.
Oh, no. I've done a lot of VR over the years. I've helped design VR games and stuff like that.
Exactly. So, I actually wanted to talk about that because I saw that The Beast is kind of a, that was something that just got a Peabody Award.
The Beast wasn't a VR game. That was an alternate reality. Alternate reality game. So that was back in 2001?
Although you were working with some VR stuff
that would have been no, that's a different thing. But that game was actually one of the first alternate reality games. And it was a promotional game for the AI movie that Steven Spielberg did way back in the day. Right? It was originally a Stanley Kubrick movie that Spielberg took over after his friend Kubrick's death. And a guy named Jordan Weissman and Pete Fenlon, who were old friends of mine from Microsoft at the time and FASA, and then from Iron Crown Enterprises in Catan came up with this idea, like, we're going to build a murder mystery on the web where you're going to kind of go down rabbit holes. And this is the early days of Google, where you watched the trailer from the film, and in the trailer there was something, if you paused it, you could see Janine Sala, sentient machine therapist. That was a credit there. And you're like, well, what's that? Right? Because that doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing. And you would Google her name or whatever search engine you're using at the time. It would lead you to this whole set of websites that we had developed that had a murder mystery involved. I think it was Who Killed Ethan Chan, I think is what it was. And a guy named Lon Lee was one of the main guys on it too. He's now the head of Exploding Kittens.
Right? Oh, yes. Yeah,
which was, just has a new TV show out on Netflix and does some great stuff. And I was Alex Irvine is another writer friend of mine who did this. We ended up developing all these websites for like giant mech battling games and leagues and such. I was running video games for Japanese cell phones, right? The flip phones.
Yeah.
And I don't speak Japanese at all, but they would get translated over there. And just the background for that stuff is really kind of an amazing thing. And I really credit Jordan and Pete and Lon doing a lot of that stuff. They had Alex and I were kind of junior designers who came in and helped them out with that. But it was stunning. It was one of these games that he said was like running a game, a role-playing game for 50,000 of your best friends.
Exactly.
Because we didn't expect the entire internet to gang up on us. Right?
Yeah.
We thought we were going to put this game out here and every individual person was going to play it. But what happened is they all got together and formed a forum and traded solutions and cracked every puzzle we gave them within like hours. And we're like, oh man, we thought that was going to take weeks. So we were scrambling like crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and like that was back in 2001, and now seeing how the internet is very much grown and become even more interconnected, it's kind of almost like things like those games, those AR things are almost required now.
Yeah, they're everywhere now, right? They're mostly smaller things done for promotion. Jordan did another one for the Dark Knight that was, and he did another one for Halo called I Love Bees back when that came out. So wonderful stuff to work on and play with, and he was really good at that. In fact, he came here at Comic-Con when he was doing the Dark Knight one, and he had stacks of $1 bills that had little Post-its they had colored up that had the Joker's face over George Washington's face, right? And then you're not allowed legally to deface American currency, right? So there's just Post-it stickers that went on. And they would go around and say, go to every booth that people were selling stuff and say, if I will give you, for $80, I will give you 100 $1 bills that have this on there. And you have to use them to give them as change to everybody.
Yeah.
And so people would go, this would go, what the heck is this? And then they'd start digging into the rabbit hole. So really what you're doing is just building this rabbit hole for people to follow, a maze that goes through. Really kind of a lot of fun. But making a game for thousands and thousands of people at once.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it sounds like a bunch of tabletop gaming and role-playing just is a breeding ground, if I can say that, of innovation and entrepreneurship as well. You guys are always working and talking with industries and everything. What skills do you have to or have you found most important when, communicating, being on groups of people?
I think the big thing is storytelling skills, right? And not just because if you're telling a storytelling game, right? But to be able to communicate with the other people on your team or to pitch it to a sponsor or whatever, you have to say, why is this interesting and exciting? Who's going to be interested in this? Who is this game for? Why should you put money into this? ARGs almost never make money. They're mostly sponsored by people who are trying to get people intrigued by what they're doing, right? So, when that happens, you have to actually say, okay, we have this great idea for this thing, but let me describe it to you so you understand what we're doing here. And then we'll go build this thing for people.
Yeah, and ARGs again.
Yeah, it's alternate reality games.
Yes,
so,
alternate reality.
So, and this is now alternate reality or advanced reality or mixed reality. Yeah. It usually involves headsets and stuff, but this is all just rabbit holes through web pages.
Yeah. That's exciting. And through that, there's definitely more people getting involved and trying to find their way to enter in. And you run the Diana Jones nonprofit.
Yep.
How's that?
The Diana Jones Awards is basically started out as kind of a goof. A bunch of us who are game designers in the tabletop industry decided to give out an award for what we thought was the coolest thing in gaming that year. And the neat thing about that is we're not restricted to games. We'll give it out to people, events, whatever the heck else we want to do. I was about to slip and tell you who won it this year, but I can't do that. So we're going to announce it next Wednesday at Gen Con. And it started out as my birthday party at Gen Con, like, I guess 24 years ago. And we decided to keep doing it every year. And so this year, it's always been the Wednesday before Gen Con. And we have a big industry party. We have 300, 400, 500 people show up. And we also, the neat thing we started doing now is in the last 4 years, we formed an emerging designer program. where we bring in new people, often marginalized designers, often from other parts of the world, who wouldn't have the opportunity to come to Gen Con and be part of our community there that does this kind of stuff if they didn't have some assistance. So we give them an honorarium of a couple $1,000. We fly them out from wherever they happen to be. We give them a badge at Gen Con. We get them a hotel room, which is actually hard to come by, kind of like at Comic-Con.
Right.
And then we actually we introduce them to people, show them around. We give them a booth where they can play their games with people and show their games to people and sell their games if they like. And it's really been an amazing experience, right?
Yeah.
And we have Camden Wright is the guy who runs that for us, and Aaron Trammell, who's actually a professor over at UC Irvine, and they do an amazing job with it.
Yeah, amazing. And also getting, universities are constantly looking for opportunities to, flourish and get groups going. Yeah, for sure.
And we ended up becoming a 501c3 I guess 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago. And as soon as we did that, the guys at the Bundle of Holding, which is kind of like the Humble Bundle, but for tabletop PDFs, they made us one of their primary charities that they donate to. And they gave us tens of thousands of dollars to help pull all this together. And big props to those folks, to Alan Varney and Beth Fischel over there, who do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Yeah, they really do support us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do want to get back to some maybe of the storytelling aspects, because even Shotguns and Sorcery or a Marvel encyclopedia that's, giant history, what is that writing process for you guys like? I can start with Marty. It'd be interesting to see
I've been rambling.
how you're writing.
I know what you want to say, but I'm just going to start you off. Outlining. You
Well,
gotta
you're
outline
writing
everything.
too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you got your own process, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's do what Dad tells you.
Yeah. Outlining. You got a plan. When you're writing like us, when you're doing it for regular work, you got to do it at a certain rate. You can't be like, one of those like John Carmack or not Carmack. What's the name of the guy who wrote No Country for Old Men?
Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, he can tinker around with.
Those are two very different people.
Yeah, you're right. He can tinker around with an novella for 8-10 years because he's a genius, right? But when you're doing it on the regular and you're trying to get product out, you can break it down into manageable chunks where you can work on it every single day and get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times what you do is you come up with an outline for the product. Sometimes you'll have your publisher say, "This is what I want." Sometimes they'll say, "Pitch me some ideas."
Yeah.
Right. And either way, what you do when you're doing a pitch, it's usually like, I'll give you like 3 or 4 one-paragraph ideas, and if you like any of those, I'll develop one of those to 2 or 3 pages, and then I'll do an outline, and then we start actually making that book. And the whole idea is to not waste anybody's time. Right? Because it's very easy to say, "I want to write this book. I'm going to write the whole thing, and I'll turn it over to you." And they'll say, "Yeah, but we don't want that book." Right? You just spent weeks of your life or months of your life working on this thing. Whereas if you'd outlined this and asked us the questions to start with, we could have guided you in the right direction. So,
right, constraints.
Yeah. So, and game design is really an iterative kind of thing too, but the outlining phase tends to be as well. You're like, "What about this? Yes, that works, but this doesn't work." I had a great time working with the guys on Halo because they would always come up and say, "Well, actually, this idea here doesn't work, but here's another idea for you. But if you have a better idea, please go ahead and go and just run it past us."
Yeah.
And it was always fantastic fun to work with those folks because they were so on top of that, so committed to the creative process. Right?
Yeah. Big communication. And is this done remote work? You guys work out of?
Yeah, we live in Wisconsin, so
Right.
there aren't a whole lot of gaming companies. Well, there tabletop gaming companies used to start in Wisconsin. That's where they are. But for video games, there's not a ton, and there's certainly not a lot of publishers. So we generally work remotely. We work out of our houses. Marty lives a couple hours away from me in Appleton, Wisconsin. I live down below Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And
A healthy distance.
a healthy
That's good.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a bit new now for after.
Exactly. We have a good time doing it. We get to set our own hours. The trick, of course, is making sure that you're not working 24 hours, 7 days a week at that point.
Right, exactly.
Because you have to be able to set some borders for yourself or boundaries so you can actually see your family and things like that.
Yeah.
See your wife.
Yeah.
I like your wife. I like your wife. She's a great lady. So you should spend time with her.
Yeah, I would like to. I'm busy. I'm busy. I think I just got a call from her like 10 minutes ago.
She's an accountant and works remotely too. So the two of them work out of their apartment together.
Yeah, I was wondering because there's been a shift in remote work or hybrid work, but you guys have been, kind of used to that. Or,
I grew up, he was working from home all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never known you being out in the office anywhere.
No,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty terrible employee apparently. No, I like working for myself, like doing my own things. And when the quadruplets came along, I actually had to move out of the house because we were in a smaller house. And then when they were about 5 years old, we got into a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, and we had a nice den. I could actually set that up in my office.
Yeah, that's true. When I was really young, you did rent an office outside of the house.
Yeah, there was a family friend who gave me a really good break on
it. Yeah, be alone for a bit.
Well, literally, there was not a room. There was no room to put my desk in that house.
Yeah,
right. There were 7 of us in a 3-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yeah.
Oh,
but I mean,
2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but it makes things exciting. Things like Comic-Con or Gen Con that you can go to and travel. So that's awesome, and also see your work accumulate.
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm working for video game companies, they'll fly me out to wherever the company is so I can talk to the designers, see the artwork they're developing, all that kind of stuff. So I've been to Stockholm like 8 times, and Shanghai and Singapore, and all parts of America as well, just doing stuff. And other times you just work by Zoom or Google Meet or whatever.
Yeah. And then does that influence how you network at all, like how you get new jobs, or Marty, if you've also been approached through?
Well, my networking is almost all through.
Right.
How do you get new jobs?
Here's the thing: is you're a great networker and you do it naturally, and you're not even trying to do it because you're just a friendly guy, right? And you
be friendly.
Yeah, you reach the point. Yeah, you reach the point. Yeah, it is. Just be friendly. Just be a normal person. Don't be a freak.
It's a struggle sometimes.
Yeah, you reached a point like 20 years ago where you were like, you didn't have to look for work anymore.
More like 12 years.
12 years ago, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, now you bring in too much work for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, when I started out when I was younger, I would go to conventions like this, hand cards to editors, talk to people. When I was really young, I would work in booths and volunteer to help teach people how to play games. And then I'd go out to dinner with the guys afterwards and I'd say, hey, I could write that for you. I could edit that for you, whatever. Yeah. And I kind of wormed my way into doing it that way. It doesn't give you the job, but what it means is that when you submit something or want to ask something, you get to the top of the list.
Yes.
As opposed to coming in just randomly, you're at the bottom of the list. So you just build those personal connections with people.
Yeah, super.
And but I have hundreds of friends in the gaming industry that I've never worked with, and I probably never will work with, and I don't care. We're just friends, right? Because part of it is you also get to commiserate with people like, oh yeah, how's it working on that? Or this is really tough. Because other people outside of the industry don't understand. There's too much vocabulary goes in. They don't understand what you're dealing with. So it's great to be able to have those conversations with friends and build those friendships. And then it takes the pressure up. I know a lot of people network and they're like, I need to go out there and hand business cards out and make sure I have all these people on LinkedIn or whatever. Honestly, the best networking you do in the long term is find the cohort of people that you're coming up with at your age and grow with them. Right, because eventually those other people, one of you will break through, and then you'll throw the ladder down for everybody else, and you end up having this cohort of people. Like a lot of my friends nowadays are CEOs or presidents of companies, whatever, and they just recommend me for jobs. Sometimes they hire me, but a lot of times I'll just get an email out of the blue saying, "Matt, are you interested in this? We'd love to work with you." And I've not had to look for work for a dozen years or so.
Yeah.
Right? Like this World of Warcraft book, I've just got an email from editor at Dark Horse saying, we think you'd be great for that. I'm like, actually, I'm not, but my kid here.
Yeah.
You get enough work offers that you can slough some of them off.
Exactly.
Well, you have enough references and work done too that it speaks for itself.
And he's actually a really good writer. I mean, he's my kid now. I realize I'm biased, but I'm also a really harsh critic when it comes to writing because I want people to put out, I want to be associated and put out the best product I can. Right. So when we have other writers we hire into the projects, I'm not mean to them, but I'm thorough. Right. I like to make sure that we're doing the right things. That we're putting out good product. And Marty, probably because I've been coaching him on this kind of stuff for all the way through his life, is really good at it. Right. Or at least you're to my taste, which probably helps a lot.
The prodigy.
Yeah.
I'm good enough to get it done.
Let's say. Well, there's the funny part is there are a lot of people in any kind of creative industry who don't get it done.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Or fall behind and phone it in or whatever, and
determination is half the job.
It really, showing up is half the job. There are a lot of people who start out the stuff and then they choke on their first assignment and then they walk away, which is sad because honestly, a lot of times they're talented folks that just stumble. Right? Give it another shot if you can. The world needs more art in it. It's a good thing. Yeah,
definitely. And speaking of, I was kind of thinking or going through, Marty, you did some writing at university, right?
I did.
Yeah, based on, some media that you like and that works its way into, I'm sure, some work that you guys are writing now and the stories you create.
College articles.
I certainly hope.
I did a little research. I also myself, speaking, I wrote for a little bit at the Guardian at UCSD.
Nice.
Did my test in the arts and entertainment industry just because that's passionate and it finds its way into now your actual profession. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm kind of blanking. I had something. I should have written it down. Oh, but going along with that,
Sure.
You're writing things that were inspiring to you, or games or media. What kind of media continues to kind of weave its way into the stories you tell? Archetypes or things that you kind of draw back to as reference for story building or world building.
I'm kind of an omnivore. I mean, if there's something that looks intriguing, I'll just follow it and devour it, right?
Yeah.
But Marty's actually brought in a lot of areas for me. He's like, Dad, you got to try this, right?
Yeah.
Like Berserk.
You're not. The new generation's all into manga. You're an old comics fan, Yeah. And now I've become an old comics fan because I've had to for the Marvel game. But
the funny part is I actually wrote manga illustration guides when you were just very young.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wrote the
Idiot's Guide.
Complete Idiot's Guide to Fantasy Manga Creatures Illustrate. How to draw.
Yeah.
Right? The funny part is I can't draw. Right? But I was a good writer, and they would match me up with an artist, Tomoko Taniguchi, who was actually a mangaka from Japan.
Wow.
And she would actually draw the stuff. She's like, I don't understand this because, I just draw the things. I'm like, yeah, but how to draw a book has to show you how to figure out the dimensions and the perspective and the motion lines. And we teach kids how to do armatures, see the underlying architecture. And so I would just say, you need to draw this. And she would do it. It was great. But she was just one of these rare talents to just walk up and go, done, right? But yeah, I did 3 books like that. Actually, I did 2 for manga and 1 for superheroes and villains for complete idiots. Because apparently I'm a complete idiot. So it works.
Yeah, but that just means, media everywhere has its potential to, weave its way into professional work or, things that you guys do as a hobby, but then build it into a
No, we like to, we
profession.
devour films, we devour television, video games, tabletop games, anything that's fun and has a story to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually did, at one point I did a project where I did an interactive audio adventure for Milwaukee Public Museum.
Oh, wow.
That was actually kind of the choose your own adventure kind of thing. But it would figure out which way you decided to go by which way you walked in the museum. And there's little Bluetooth beacons that would tell them where they went to go. And you had to go find Houdini's lost check that was hidden in the streets of old Milwaukee, which is this beloved installation that was 50 years old. Hired me in to come and do this. I got to record the video, or I was in there when they were recording the audio for it. We got to do it in the same the guy who was the producer had produced the first 2 Violent Femmes albums. And I was like, as a Violent Femmes fan, I was like, yeah, this is
cool.
I'm like, what is that gold record on your wall? Oh my God.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, just good fun.
Yeah, that was a weird project.
It was a
neat.
weird
It was neat.
project.
It was
Yeah.
neat.
But
It's a really nice museum too.
Yeah,
You ever in Milwaukee? Go to that museum.
they're building a new one now. They're going
What?
to tear it down. I know. They just announced it a couple months ago.
Updates.
Yeah, every kid in Wisconsin's been to the Milwaukee Public Museum 6 times for field trips.
Yeah, I know. My heart.
I know.
It's my childhood.
But I mean,
There you
that's amazing to see where exactly interactivity and gaming and everything's gamifying an experience at a museum. That's just kind of what people I think are looking for is, more ways to experience storytelling than just, natural media. And what exactly is all this still fun for you? Do you have side campaigns, or is it work? How do you balance that exactly?
I don't run a regular D&D game, and neither do you, because we're working on them all.
Right.
we play board games with the family.
Hey,
we
we
pull
got a
out
little
board games.
turn yesterday.
The trouble is that I play a lot of games at conventions and such, right? So I get a chance to do that. But a lot of people play these games, and the same reason they do coloring books or whatever else. It's a chance to scratch your creative itch. We're all very creative human beings. Human beings in general are creative souls. They want to express themselves somehow. They often don't have the skills to do the Sistine Chapel or whatever, right? But they can do coloring books, and they can actually make decisions. Somebody has built this entertainment experience for them. We do things that are a little bit more complicated with role-playing games, but we're scratching that creative itch on ourselves constantly by creating these things.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I would just play first-person shooters and blow things up, right?
Right,
Just because I wanted some action.
Yeah, mash the button on Dragon Quest and fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good that you're still,
But that's how I got into doing Halo, and then I ended up writing Halo novels. So it worked out well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of awesome and inspiring to see you can become a fan of something and then end up working with the team that does that. That's definitely.
Yeah, Halo was funny. The first time I'd seen Halo, I'd actually been interviewing with Bungie for working on a fantasy game. And actually, the job went to John Scott Tynes, who's now in charge of D&D, a lot of D&D's electronic stuff. And they were showing me a demo of this game. I'm like, this is amazing. So when the game came out, I played it, and it was actually the first person shooter I played with all my kids because it's the blood is like purple, the violence is kind of cartoony, so it wasn't like Call of Duty or Armed Assault or something
look,
like
the
Right.
dirt particles change
Yeah,
depending on the dirt you're
Right.
throwing out.
And then when I found out that this editor I'd worked with on a previous novel had gotten the license to do Halo, I'm like, Ed, you're gonna hire me for this. And he's like, I am just writing you right now, Matt. Thank God you just responded. So, yeah. He's like, literally, he was writing me that note when my email hit him.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, perfect. Right. But like, and then I ended up writing the junior novel for Rogue One for Star Wars. Right.
Oh, wow.
And that was because I'd written chapter books, right? So it had to be a chapter book like that. And I had written military science fiction for Halo. And honestly, the Venn diagram that shows you people who've written chapter books in military science fiction, there's not a lot of overlap, right? So, so that was something where they, Jen Heddle at Lucasfilm just said, hey, I think you'd be perfect for this. Would you be interested? I'm like, I think my wife heard me shouting from downstairs. Right? I was like, oh my, yes, please, God. First time, then I wrote her back saying, yes, Jen, I'd be very interested in speaking to you. As a professional would.
Calm and
Exactly.
collected,
I'm
right.
not screaming through the email, but at home, man, I think I woke up everyone in the neighborhood. It's amazing.
Yeah. What are some, future passion? Let's manifest right now. Any future passion projects?
What would you like to
I mean,
work
I'm working on my passion project right now. Is the Marvel game. And I've been reading Spider-Man since I was like my first drawings was like a sketchbook when I was like 6 months old, or just the worst Spider-Man drawings you ever see.
Exactly.
And now I'm writing
6
for a
months.
Spider-Verse book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it like a tie-in book, or is it?
It's next expansion for the Marvel game. The next expansion that's coming out, the game came out last summer, then we did Cataclysm of Kang, which was a 256-page adventure, big campaign. And then the X-Men expansion is coming out next week, actually. It's going to be out, August 7th. We're going to have copies of Gen Con when we show up there.
Right.
And then there was a Deadpool adventure that came out a couple weeks ago. And then the next big book is the Spider-Verse expansion, which is what we're writing right now. That'll be out hopefully in March, I think, 25.
Yeah.
That's what we're projecting. And yeah, that's kind of like, man, I tell you, tabletop role-playing games don't pay really well, right? But I love them. I've never gotten away from them. I keep doing them no matter what. But I make more money doing video games and other stuff like that, especially when I'm trying to put 4 kids through college at once, right? And yeah, I know, crazy. But John Nee, who was actually the first time I came out to California here to San Diego, John Nee was the vice president of Wildstorm, which was Jim Lee's division of Image Comics, right? And Jim was one of the most popular artists in comic books of all time. He did X-Men #1 with Chris Claremont that sold 8 million copies, best-selling comic book of all time. He took that money and founded Image Studios with a bunch of his friends. And they hired me out to develop a card game for them. And so I've known John for like 29 years now. I think he happened in 95. And he suddenly, 28 years later, 25 years later, became the publisher of Marvel Comics.
Wow.
And I'm like, and he writes me and says, Matt, you're going to write this game for us, right? And I'm like, oh man, like you're going to make it worth my while, right? It'll be fun. I mean, it doesn't matter. I was going to do it anyway. So as soon as he said, do you want to write the Marvel game? I'm like, yeah.
And it pays very
It
well.
pays pretty well for role-playing.
Role-playing.
We don't complain.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And honestly, the team they have there are fantastic. The guys are amazing. Our editors and our producers, CJ Cervantes is our producer. Brian Overton is our editor. He does a great job. And Amir, what's Amir's last name? Osmond. Amir Osmond. Amir Osmond. There we go. Amir is just a fantastic, he's their junior producer or associate producer. And he's amazing too. He's got a real good mind for games and is always questioning everything you do and making us work harder and focus sharper on everything we do.
Yeah.
And, having the resources of one of the largest entertainment companies in the world behind you is not a bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah. You're talking about these different groups and, people that you get to work with. Are there any challenges or kind of things that you've had to overcome while, navigating, communicating with, various teams before publishing?
At this point, we know how to work things out. I'll tell you, sometimes like CJ will come up with an idea. I'm like, oh no. And I'm like screaming, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I don't answer him. I just put the email away. I come back. I'm like, darn it, he's right. I got to do that. Because the trick is he's usually right. He knows what he's talking about. And I'm like, well, that sounds like a lot of work though. So I guess that's what I'm paid for. So I get to do it.
Right.
But I honestly think whether it's a bad review you get or somebody asking you to do something to change something you want to do, the best thing to do is not answer if you're being emotional about it, right? Just take a moment, take a breath, step away, Nobody needs to know you saw that email already, right?
Right.
I was at dinner, I was out with my wife and kids, I didn't see what you're talking about. And then you can answer it when you're ready and you're in a good mood to actually do this stuff, as opposed to, I think because of the nature of social media, we're all conditioned to answer right away when something happens.
Right.
But I don't think you have to do that. I think it's better and healthier for you to take a step back and take a breath. And again, these are people like, they're great friends of mine, right? And I know that the process always comes up with a better game. But even then I'm like, oh man, come on. I was like, just going to go do this. And I'm like, you know what? I can't just go do this. I'm going to go do this with my family, and I'll come back and like in a easy mood say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That was good.
Put your ego box, put the box
Exactly.
away.
Yeah, definitely learn how to take, criticism or look at things logically as well.
If you're doing any kind of creative thing as a profession or even just for fun as art, you need to develop thick skin is one way to put it. But I think you need to remember, you need to dissociate yourself from your work, right? Because the work is the work. It's not you. But a lot of times when somebody says, this is terrible, you did a terrible thing, it's like, no, that's just this one thing I did. That doesn't define my life. It doesn't, and even if it's a great thing, I did a great thing. That doesn't define everything else I do in my life too.
Right.
You just have to remember that work is by itself, and you can keep making it better. That's one of the great things about game design. You iterate at it over and over until it's like the first time you design a game, it's terrible.
Right.
Even at this stage, the first time I crack a new game I'm working on, I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. Right? And I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. And then you put it down, you try to play it like, yeah, no, it's broken terribly. This is impossible, never to be fixed. And then you come back like a couple days later, okay, I got a great idea. And you just keep going until you're ready to show it to other people and have them destroy your.
Yeah, and even then it's not.
And that's still
the
terrible.
Game changed a lot from the playtest stage.
Right.
A lot.
Yeah, and it's that even that's not ready for public consumption until you get to the point you're ready to put it out to the public. And then you take public feedback. And you have to remember, again, it's not personal. It's not against you. It's to make a better game and a better experience for everybody who gets to interact with it. Because this is, especially with role-playing games, it's not like you write a novel and it's yours and people just have to read it. This is something that you're giving people tools to go off and do their own things with. So in a very real sense, once the game is published, it doesn't belong to you anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's out there for other people to play and other people to do stuff with. And you're just here making tools for people, right? They're making the buildings. I'm just making hammers and nails and such.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I did want to, again, thank you guys. If there's any last minute promotion things you want to shout out or things that are upcoming,
well, let's see. This weekend, actually, this evening, they're doing a Marvel live play.
Glass Cannon
Network is doing a live play of the Deadpool role plays Marvel Universe at the Convention Center, room 6DE, I think. And then tomorrow, Saturday morning, I have a panel I'm doing for 50 years of Dungeons and Dragons. So if you're going to the show, please show up for that. And at Gen Con, we have a whole bunch of other stuff coming up. Also, the World of Warcraft book just came out for Chronicle 4. And the X-Men expansion for the Marvel role-playing game is coming out on August 7th. So please go pick that up too.
Yeah, perfect.
Buy our stuff. It keeps us employed. It's great.
Definitely do it. Yeah, thank you for speaking on everything. I think it was super insightful to hear just how your iterative process is, where you've started, where you're at, and seeing exactly how even businesses or entrepreneurship groups can learn from, the way you work and live. Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah, super exciting. And thank you again for talking with us.
Well, thanks for having us here.
Are we doing
really appreciate
questions? I know I'm a bit early.
Are there any questions?
About running your own campaign.
Yeah.
Please.
So how do you stay dedicated to working on a project? How do you focus on working on one thing?
How do I stay dedicated to working on a project? The old joke is I get paid to. So I'm addicted to eating.
You're like a child, can't get paid to do something?
No, exactly. No, the way you do it is you don't have to be. The idea is you should finish something. The best thing you do is finish something. Whatever you start, finish it, right? Because what happens a lot of times is you start something, you say, this sucks. And you're right, it does suck. You're a kid, you're learning, right? When you're drawing, the trouble is that your taste often outpaces your skill. Right, so you probably have some fairly sophisticated taste. You know what you like, but you don't have the skill to pull that off quite yet. Whether it's an artwork or writing or whatever else. So a lot of times you get frustrated, you give up, you throw it away. But the way you learn is by finishing that thing, right? And then you can take that thing and say, yeah, this actually does suck. It's embarrassing. I'm going to put it away. But then you can try another thing after that. Keep going, but just finish the one thing. I often say that you can't fix what's not there. Right. So game design especially is an iterative process, but you can't fix a game that doesn't exist yet. You have to make it exist in its primal, terrible, awful, ridiculously bad form. And then you can improve it from there, right? It's this, you have this platonic ideal of what's going to come out. You're like, this is going to be the best game ever. I got all these ideas, and you put it out there, you're like, nope, that's nothing like what I envisioned because I don't have the skill to pull it off. But the neat thing about it is you don't have to show it to anybody yet. You can just do it in private and keep it away from everybody else. You don't have to read it. My first novel, which he's read,
It's
I
terrible.
read in college.
It's
Oh my
terrible.
God, it's so bad. And I joked that I basically buried it under Chernobyl so that future generations will be infected by this, right? And it's awful, right? But you learn by doing that. I mean, they say the first million words you write are going to be terrible, crap, right? So get them out of your system. Just go at it, and try to use that to be your incentive to keep going. The other thing is, I think people think, oh, I have to do this and do it right away and have it all done, right? But if you write one page a day, by the end of a year, 250 words, right? At the end of a year, you'll have written enough for an entire novel, right? 360 pages. So one page a day, 365 pages. That's enough for a novel, right? And again, it'll be a terrible novel, but that's how you learn. That's how you do it. And the first stuff I wrote was, that was even before that novel. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But you'll learn. And the other way you can try is start with smaller projects. Like, don't try to write the Great American Novel right off the gate. Start with a scene that you like. Start with a short story you want to write. Start with a poem, right? And just build those skills. And sometimes you'll find writer circles that you can share stuff with people privately, so they can critique each other, right? And that's a good way to, especially if you find friends your own age who are at the same level of skill. You can say, well, I don't like this because you have better taste. And you can tell the other people what's wrong with their stuff, and they'll tell you what's wrong with yours. And again, you shouldn't take it personally. That's part of the learning process, right? You'll figure it out.
Yeah, that was, a great question. Even I learned a bunch about that. There's definitely projects I've done where I want to finish it all in a day, and then that's where I'm going to have to keep going back to it to make it better, just polishing things down. And if you really want to get it out of your system, you could definitely.
And honestly, if it's absolute torture and you're doing this for fun, because like you say, you're a kid, don't. Right? There's no reason to torture yourself. You're doing this for fun. If it turns out that it's misery, go do something else. Go fishing. I don't know, touch grass.
There's
Play a
plenty
video
of time
game,
to be
whatever.
miserable when you're grown.
Exactly. But what you're really doing is you're figuring out if you enjoy this kind of thing, right? And if you do enjoy it, then pursue it. But I have friends who are writers sometimes, I hate writing. I just want to be done. I'm like, man, that sounds like a miserable way to live your life. If you enjoy the writing, then do it. If you enjoy the painting, if you enjoy whatever, if you enjoy playing soccer, go out in the field, right? But one bit of advice I heard recently that I really took to heart is, and it was too late for me because I'm an old man, but I was trying not to get good at something you hate, right? Like you might learn to be an accountant. Your wife likes me,
Yes,
so it works.
she does.
But you might say, well, I can make good money as an accountant. I'll learn how to do this. I avoided becoming an electrical engineer because I knew I was going to hate it compared to what I really wanted to do. And the problem is once you have that electrical engineering degree, you feel obliged to use those skills that you have worked so hard and paid so much to earn. And then you'll be 40 years old wondering what you did with your life and why am I here and what's going on, and your marriage falls apart, your kids hate you. Don't go there, right? Have your midlife crisis early is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, but that's exciting that you are looking to make your own stuff and create. Yeah, great question. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
I have a lot of friends, both in the gaming and then on the film and movie business.
Yeah.
And they're telling me about a lot of the innovations that are happening due to AI techniques and
Right.
technologies that are coming into play. So how do you see that changing the work that you and your son are doing and the evolution that it's going to bring? I'm sure in your time in the business, you've seen an evolution, but this seems like it's going to be an evolution of amazing magnitude.
I am being patient on AI at the moment, right? I think AI is a neat thing. I also think that it's a great tool for developers. I think you can speed up your iterative process by just prototyping very quickly with AI. But a lot of that stuff should just be prototypes and not published, right? It's not really ready for human consumption in a lot of ways, right? You can try out ideas and say, is this a good idea? If it is, then we assemble a team of actual humans to do this kind of stuff. But right now, AI is at a buzzword stage, and I think it's better than Bitcoin was, but Bitcoin was one of those things that, for like the last 5 years before
he's
that.
extremely patient and polite. Also,
Yeah.
I don't like it. I'm a maybe that makes me a Luddite or something. I don't like it.
No, but the trick is that like blockchain, for about 5 years, everybody who's doing anything associated with tech would say blockchain. And I would have people try to hire me to do blockchain games. And I'd say, okay, if you could explain to me why this is a better solution than what we already do, then I will do this. And I had these people boot up from, the guy was interviewing me all the way up to the CEO. And every time that they would just get stumped. I wasn't being mean. I'm like, literally, please explain to me why this is a better solution than what we're already doing. Why is this better for customers? Why is this a better experience for the player as opposed to you trying to get VC money coming your way? And AI, there are a lot of people doing some really cool stuff with AI, right? But there are also a lot of people latching onto it because they know it's the cool new thing in tech and that they just put AI next to it. They can get more VC money, theoretically, right? I think this kind of stuff being done in centers of innovation like this at colleges and universities is really intriguing and amazing. I think that's where a lot of the really cutting edge stuff is being done. And I think we're going to see some fine stuff there. I also know some writers who are afraid that, AI is going to come take all our jobs because they'll write novels or whatever else. I'm like, that's not true, right? I mean, you look at AI and so there are people who literally will generate AI novels and throw them up on Amazon. Mm-hmm. But the problem isn't that they're doing this. The problem is that they're so easy to do. They can do 100 of them. 1,000 of them at the time it would take you to write a regular novel. None of them are any good. I don't feel threatened by that. The problem with Amazon or any other marketplace right now is not that there's AI out there. There's so much stuff, it's hard to get recognized. So for us, one of the ways we do is we work with companies like Marvel and whatever else. And that gets you to the top of being recognized by people as opposed to being one of 1,000 or million other artists who are trying to make it. So again, I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm interested to see how it develops. But AI is also like VR. It's been tried. You get different interactions, and every time it happens, it comes across. You're like, that's kind of cool. But is it really where we're going to end up? Mm-hmm. No, because we're always innovating and getting better at it. But AI has not solved a lot of problems in the world. I don't think it's going to solve a novel, or writing, which is a very complex process that most humans don't understand, much less machines that do that kind of stuff. But I still think it's a great way to prototype. I think we see some interesting things there. But I pretty much like to hire real writers or real artists and stuff because I think even if they're using that stuff for prototyping, I want to see what they produce.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of interested. You're kind of very
Marty's much more.
There's also kind of the new energy or environmental impact that's coming out about AI, and that's another thing that's interesting. Is that playing a part in also how you're feeling?
Yeah,
is it more
I mean,
human aspect as well?
I don't want to get too brutal.
Yeah.
But, okay. I like VR. Actually. I like VR for a lot of stuff. I know maybe I'm not into that whole.
We've had 2 or 3 headsets at home.
Yeah.
We love this stuff, right?
Facebook Metaverse stuff or whatever. I don't like that, but I like VR. I like putting on. I've played a lot of really great VR games. I think they're brilliant. AI. I'm just like this is spicy autocorrect is what this is. This just generates nonsense.
The question is, at a certain point, does the nonsense become close enough to what somebody can create that's indistinguishable?
It's certainly,
right?
It can create some interesting results, but I mean...
And I agree with you. I don't think it's indistinguishable at this point, right?
No.
And it may be at some point in the future, but even then, I mean, the trouble is, there's a whole issue of copyright and, them plundering the web to actually feed these machines. Mm-hmm. But even then, the trick is if you put everything ever put on the web into an AI machine and see what it spits out, generally speaking, the best you can hope for is average, right? Usually,
I wouldn't even go that far.
I mean, even if it was working well.
I've read a lot of really, I'm talking mostly about text here, but I've read a lot of AI text or whatever. Even before the latest boom, there was you'd see videos online that are I generated a 120-page Sonic AI script to bring you a live reading of it. And it's it's funny, it's interesting. There's certainly an interesting aspect to the generative, way that it was made, but it's it doesn't hang together as a script. Characters just appear and disappear in scenes. It's like the image generator too. Again, you can make interesting sort of results happen. You make things happen that are oh, that's weird and interesting in a way that computers are weird. But it's all based on estimation and mashing images together with an algorithm. So it's they don't get the fine details at all, right? They know mathematically kind of what a person is sort of maybe supposed to look like. You can do a face because faces are easily recognized, but on hands or anything with fine details, right? It just turns into this weird gobbledygook gibberish, which is actually the part of it that's interesting to me.
Oh yeah,
it's seeing the algorithmic standpoint of it. But in terms of making art that people would want to buy
Yeah.
or whatever, and a nice print on the wall. I don't think it's doing that.
I don't think it's going to
anytime
replace human efforts at any point,
Yeah.
right? I'm not worried about that, to be honest. What I'm interested in seeing what kind of things you can do to help me move things faster, do things faster, prototype faster, whatever. But like, it's hard enough for human beings to understand things like foreshadowing and a joke needs a setup and a payoff, stuff like that, or a callback. It's hard enough for human beings to understand that. There's a lot of talented writers who don't get that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's interesting to see this like writer perspective because obviously humans are writing the algorithms, but still it's kind of interesting to see like what is not making sense with this AI generated, text. And again, the filter aspect is interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've been using procedural design. I mean, Minecraft is a procedurally designed level game, right? Every time you do a Minecraft world, it's a new procedural design.
Right.
But it's within guardrails that make sense for it, right? So it works really well. And it's a lot of fun. The procedures and the algorithms get better and better as we go. But then you're always like, who's in charge of the algorithm? I mean, if you get on social media nowadays, the algorithms are basically designed to make us angry at each other because it increases interactivity and engagement, which increases eyes, which pays more ad dollars, right? I don't think that's a healthy thing.
Right.
So yeah, it's an intriguing world. It's as they say, we live in interesting times. We'll see how it all pans out. So.
Amazing.
Do you have a favorite project or character you created?
Favorite project or character?
What about you?
I like the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't been as nearly as many projects as you have. So.
The main hero of Shotguns and Sorcerers is a guy named Max Gibson, who's this ex-adventurer who's had his one big score and his best friend was killed in the adventure. He's gone back. I love the character. I love working. I love writing him. The banter and the tone of voice that he does is really my style all the way. So for me, that's just it's fun every time I get to write Max. Right. Sometimes the problem, I was talking about this earlier, that you write these stories. By the time you get to the end of the story, you're like, you love your characters. You care about them, right? You're like, oh, I'm not going to see this guy for a while. I might never see him again. Shucks, And then maybe some idea will come and you get to go back to him. But yeah, I'm really fond of that. The first novel I wrote, there was an original novel, Immortals. I'm really fond of that. There's Ronan Dooley was the name of the character. So the trick is, it's like trying to figure out which one of your friends is your best friend, right? So you can go like for licensed stuff. I think Buck from the Halo novels.
Halo.
Who was actually
It's just
voiced
so
by
much fun.
he's voiced by Nathan Fillion for the video games.
Oh, amazing.
And so I wrote 2 sequels to Halo 3 ODST as novels. I basically had Nathan Fillion's Buck voice rattling in my head for 6 months at a time. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And people are like, yeah, you really got the voice down. I'm like, yeah, because it just spoke to me. It was a fun character. But yeah, part of it is you try to love everything you do, even if it's not for you all the time, right? Because you might not be the audience for the stuff like this Life is Strange book. These folks the class brought to us this morning and had us signed. That wasn't a game I was in love with, but one of my sons was. And I'm like, I have to figure out how to love this, right? And how to care about the characters that have to mean something to me. Because if it doesn't mean something to the writer, it's not going to mean something to the reader, right? You have to really want to be part of this. And also that means it's fun as opposed to pulling teeth, right? I don't want to pull teeth for a living, especially my own. So that's
Amazing.
Yeah, can you tell us about the program that got you here, Sam, and your show, and close us out by telling us where we filmed today?
Yeah, of course. So so the program, I was a part of Origami Air Studios again. They run MAVERiC Studios up on the 4th floor of the entrepreneurship building. And that is a cohort. I was a part of cohort 2, so a 10-week program in which we got to develop and ship a game or experience in VR chat. Through that, I got to learn, that was my first time with game development. Or anything of the sort. So it was fun to navigate that and also see what other opportunities can come after that cohort. Again, speaking, further with Joe and, getting me to produce my own show, Crossroads, which is on the MAVERiC Studios YouTube channel. And so every week I kind of take a thing a piece of XR tech, extended reality, so your VR headsets, AR, MR, any mixed reality type technology, and dive into exactly how that tech is dealing or working its way into various industries. This first season is focusing on the film industry, since that's something I'm personally very interested in doing and working my way into career-wise. So I have been doing that. And again, got the opportunity to join Matt and Marty yesterday for Shotguns and Sorcery down at Parkin Market, the UCSD space down there. And, you know, also see how XR played a role in how we got to play a tabletop one-off game. And yeah, that's been super amazing to have that opportunity through UCSD. And yeah, I mean, it's been great talking to you and
fantastic.
seeing exactly where paths cross with that. And you have covered a lot of ground, and it's exciting, and I can't wait to see what that Spider-Man game or Spider-Man book comes out with. And yeah.
I'm excited to see what you do next too.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having us.
Okay, so for everybody in the room, we actually have another special opportunity for you in the back. Chihuahua, which is one of our other cohort members, and this is one of our startups that came out of Maverick Studio. We don't just teach people how